Question No. 1. A solutions architect needs to securely store a database username and password that an application uses to access an Amazon or DSDB instance. The application that accesses the database runs on an Amazon EC2 instance. The solutions architect wants to create a secure parameter in AWS Systems Manager parameter store. What should the solutions architect do to meet this requirement? Create an IAM role that has read access to the parameter store parameter. Allow decrypt access to an AWS key management service, AWS KMS, key that is used to encrypt the parameter. Assign this IAM role to the EC2 instance. Create an IAM policy that allows read access to the parameter store parameter. Allow decrypt access to an AWS key management service, AWS KMS, key that is used to encrypt the parameter. Assign this IAM policy to the EC2 instance. Create an IAM trust relationship between the parameter store parameter and the EC2 instance. Specify Amazon or DS as a principal in the trust policy. Create an IAM trust relationship between the DB instance and the EC2 instance. Specify Systems Manager as a principal in the trust policy. Answer B. Question No. 2. A hospital is designing a new application that gathers symptoms from patients. The hospital has decided to use Amazon Simple Queue Service, Amazon SOS, and Amazon Simple Notification Service, Amazon SNS, in the architecture. A solutions architect is reviewing the infrastructure design data. Must be encrypted at test and in transit. Only authorized personnel of the hospital should be able to access the data. Which combination of steps should the solutions architect take to meet these requirements? Select 2. Turn on server-side encryption on the SQS components. Update tie default key policy to restrict key usage to a set of authorized principals. Turn on server-side encryption on the SNS components by using an AWS key management service, AWS KMS, customer managed key. Apply a key policy to restrict key usage to a set of authorized principals. Turn on encryption on the SNS components. Update the default key policy to restrict key usage to a set of authorized principals. Set a condition in the topic POKey to allow only encrypted connections over TLS. Turn on server-side encryption on the SOS components by using an AWS key management service, AWS KMS, customer managed key. Apply a key POKey to restrict key usage to a set of authorized principals. Set a condition in the queue POKey to allow only encrypted connections over TLS. Turn on server-side encryption on the SOS components by using an AWS key management service, AWS KMS, customer managed key. Apply an IAM POKey to restrict key usage to a set of authorized principals. Set a condition in the queue POKey to allow only encrypted connections over TLS. Answer BD. Question No. 3. A company uses a 100 GB Amazon or DS for Microsoft SQL Server single AZDB instance in the East 1 region to store customer transactions. The company needs high availability and automate recovery for the DB instance. The company must also run reports on the RDS database several times a year. The report process causes transactions to take longer than usual to post to the customer accounts. Which combination of steps will meet these requirements? Select 2. Modify the DB instance from a single AZDB instance to a multi-AZ deployment. Take a snapshot of the current DB instance. Restore the snapshot to a new RDS deployment in another availability zone. Create a read replica of the DB instance in a different availability zone. Point all requests for reports to the read replica. Migrate the database to RDS custom. Use RDS proxy to limit reporting requests to the maintenance window. Answer SC. Question No. 4. A company's compliance team needs to move its file shares to AWS. The shares run on a Windows Server SMB file share. A self-managed on-premises Active Directory controls access to the files and folders. The company wants to use Amazon FSx for Windows File Server as part of the solution. The company must ensure that the on-premises Active Directory groups restrict access to the FSx for Windows File Server SMB compliance shares, folders, and files after the move to AWS. The company has created an FSx for Windows File Server file system. Which solution will meet these requirements? Create an Active Directory connector to connect to the Active Directory. Map the Active Directory groups to IAM groups to restrict access. Assign a tag with a restrict tag key and a compliance tag value. Map the Active Directory groups to IAM groups to restrict access. Create an IAM service linked role that is linked directly to FSx for Windows File Server to restrict access. Join the file system to the Active Directory to restrict access. Answer, D. Question No. 5. A company has a data ingestion workflow that consists of the following: an Amazon Simple Notification Service, Amazon SNS, topic for notifications about new data deliveries, and a AWS Lambda function to process the data and record metadata. The company observes that the ingestion workflow fails occasionally because of network connectivity issues. When such a failure occurs, the Lambda function does not ingest the corresponding data unless the company manually reruns the job. Which combination of actions should a solutions architect take to ensure that the Lambda function ingests all data in the future? Select 2. E. Configure the Lambda function in multiple availability zones. B. Create an Amazon Simple Queue service, Amazon SQS, queue, and subscribe it to me SNS topic. C. Increase the CPU and memory that are allocated to the Lambda function. D. Increase provision throughput for the Lambda function. E. Modify the Lambda function to read from an Amazon Simple Queue service, Amazon SQS, queue. Answer, B. E.